Yes,
Yes.
that looks great, just as it should be. Thank you so
Oh,
much,
good.
Marissa.
Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Yes, I'm Dr. Bravetti, and I'm here to talk to you about the Oklahoma Teacher Connection today. And let me move forward on this slide. So you might be asking, what is the Oklahoma Teacher Connection? So I'd like to begin with this key information that the Oklahoma Teacher Connection is a special division from the Oklahoma State Regents for Higher Education, where we provide curriculum and grant awards for different schools around the states. And I'd love for you to consider having a program at your school. And I'll explain a little more as we talk through this PowerPoint, because I'm looking at 3 different components embedded within these programs. So let me move forward to the next slide. So 3 things I am focusing on is the engaging of students, the empowering of students, and the excelling. So let me just touch on kind of what that means. So engagement means having our students, and most of these programs are high school geared. They are developing a collegiate program as well. But in general, freshmen through seniors, as well as if you have an 8th grade, 7th to 8th grade program, the Lead Oklahoma would target that age group better. So engaging means to improve academic achievement. It means developing those social skills. It's about building community. And why is that important? Why are engaged students important? And feel free to answer in the chat box, because we'll keep looping back to things at the end of this session, because I'd like to make sure we address any comments or questions that might arise. Why is engagement so important? And feel free to just chat down some ideas. Well, we know that building community and having that inclusion makes effective learning environments. When you're hands-on, it helps to have these experiences where you can reflect and grow. And that's been around forever. Aristotle talked about that we have to have our beliefs and then do something, and then we keep kind of checking ourselves, like, this happened and how did that go? And especially if you're in education, you'll do a lesson plan and then say, how'd that go? And then you're always refining and tweaking things. So with these programs, we're working with high schoolers, and we're helping model what engagement looks like, so that they can be engaging educators themselves down the road. An interesting stat is that almost 60% of teachers end up teaching within 20 miles of the school they went to. So remember that as you're teaching these kids, almost 60% of them will be teaching that go into the field of education right within that 20-mile radius. So the second component that's really important to me is empowering. And empowering isn't just for students. Empower your colleagues, empower your parents, let people be autonomous. And with that, I often teach the gradual release of responsibility model. And gradual release is based off Vygotsky, and that's kind of an old theory, an old classic theory too, of building that independence. At first, we're the instructors. Anyone can be the leader of the classroom at any time. But when you're teaching something, you're modeling it, you're explaining it, and then slowly let the students keep taking over and having responsibility themselves. So basically that they build that autonomy, and then they're empowered to have their own voice, where they can look through, theories, ideas, content, and then make autonomous, well-informed decisions, that they just don't believe everything they see or hear. And that's really important, probably now more than ever in our media digital age. The last component I mentioned as the 3 E's is excelling. And excelling refers to, yes, our students, also our teachers in schools. And excelling means focusing on what we can do. That's really important in life. In education, as in life, we need to be moving forward with what we can do. And I've heard a phrase recently called the feed forward. So feedback is good, to keep refining things, but feed forward is also about building that success in your students. Also, I think another component too with excelling is building that resilience, because a lot of research shows that resiliency is the key to success. We've all had failures. I've been told no over and over, but say to yourself, tell your students, not yet, it will come. So those are 3 E's, kind of what I'm meaning as definitions in this PowerPoint. The programs that I'm highlighting today is Lead Oklahoma, Teach Oklahoma, and Educators Rising. And these are grant programs that the state Regents offers for all schools. Email me after if you have more particular questions. But I do want to point out that Lead Oklahoma is typically for 8th, 9th, 10th graders. And it builds those leadership skills, builds critical thinking, problem solving, and then hopefully they're considering a field in education. There's so many great fields of education. I'm hoping many of you are counselors who can take back this valuable resource for your schools. The Teach Oklahoma is highlighted for older students, and both programs, Teach and Lead, work a lot with collegiate professors that are also on our collegiate grant. So we network that you have these professors coming in. They do build pipelines, which is important, but they also just provide resources of what it is to be successful at the university level. And I know most of us, we love school and we enjoyed school, but there are times that there's stressful things going on in school. So we're working on building those as teachers, as counselors, as leaders of the school, those desirable, difficult moments. And desirable difficulty is about guiding your students to a growth mindset and improvement. And what's interesting is students need about 50 to 80% successful attempts. Let me say that again, because I think that's a little bit high, but for students to keep improving in that desirable difficulty, they need about 50 to 80% success. And so the gamers got it right when they're creating these video games and they have that happy level of success, but it's not too easy. It's not 90 to 100% typically. We would like that for mastery on a project or an assessment. However, that leads a little bit of trial and error. Let your students not get right answers and kind of problem solve with them, because that can build those critical thinking skills. The last program I do want to highlight a bit today is the Educators Rising. These are chapters nationally, actually. So we have an Oklahoma chapter that networks, and they get to compete and network, and it's part of the fraternity, the education fraternity too. So there's many opportunities with Educators Rising. I'm very excited because we get to do statewide competitions that go on to nationwide competitions with fun, engaging events like TED Talks or designing a book. So if you have any particular questions, please email me or ask after the presentation. A new school year is starting because typically we have people apply in April and May, and then we award up to $500 in grant awards, as well as give you a curriculum. And the curriculum, let me see if I touch on that with the next slide. I don't touch on that until probably the slide after, but the curriculum can be customized. So don't feel like it's just something cut and dry. Make it your own. So part of the theory used is transformational learning theory, and it's evolved a bit. People call it transformative theory. It's still around, stronger than ever, because it's that reflexive, hands-on experience that helps us develop our, I guess, our growth mindset, our learning, how to say it. So if you have any questions about some of the classic theory of transformational learning, just let me know. But a lot of it highlights hands-on experiences, and these programs have service learning, and they also have internships and observations and things that you can choose how you want them to get that hands-on learning. I was reading that only 30% of universities have service learning. So this opportunity to show them the value of service learning is very important. I mean, it's life-changing. I used to do it with my middle schoolers. I'd have them vote and pick. We had a lot of fun voting and picking, and you know, they always surprised me. We'd go visit retirement centers. We'd send cards places. Just a little bit goes a long way, but that service learning idea stuck with them, that giving back to others feels good. You know, helping others just feels good. And I want to point out some of the benefits that we have. As I mentioned, we have a curriculum that we provide you. I've had a lot of teachers reach out and say, I'm teaching this life skills class or this leadership class, and I don't have anything. Well, we have a research-based, customized curriculum for you. So just reaching out and applying, and I can help you with the application, happy to do so. We give you this resource and training that you can be effective and successful in that. Also, there's mentoring. We have lots of networks where people get together and help each other. Colleagues are really special. Those are people that you get to lift up and help each other become better at your craft. I'm also one of the people available to help with mentoring. I've taught for about 20 years, and I've taught P12 as well as international students and graduate students. So I have a diverse background. And, you know, as educators, we're always modeling that. We're learning new things. Our students are always changing. You know, this year had a lot of changes for us. So we model that. Learning from each other and mentoring is it's a never-ending process. It's a fun, lifelong process. As I mentioned previously, we do have grant awards up to $500. These are for your supplies. There's different things you can do. If you want to reach out to me about that, I'm happy to send you our chart of all the things that are available with your grant award. I also want to mention again the real experiences, because you get to choose what type of experiences. There's some guidelines. Nonetheless, you want to do something that's meaningful for your demographics. And that's the best part of the programs, that you are supporting the community in your area, what's useful, who needs help, and what do your students at your school need. Okay. Let's keep moving. And sorry, I'm checking time just to make sure we have enough time, because I do want to address questions at the end. Ada, just let me know if I get a little long-winded, because I want to jump to a Kahoot activity in just a bit. But I do want to talk about this networking. This is at an Educators Rising conference where they got to compete. It looks like they're holding up the books they designed. It's just really special to see the kids take ownership, and then we honor them with certificates of appreciation. And it's a great way to know future educators. And classroom teachers are very valuable. I want to say that first and foremost, but there's so many different fields of education, you know, coaches, athletic directors. There's so many fields where you give back, and instruction and communication is important if you're in education. So as I was just saying, instruction and communication is very important. And so that is sort of one of the hallmarks of education, having good relationships. And you might hear students say that teacher was tough, but I learned a lot. Remember though, that mutual respect is what helps people learn. We want to provide that support for them and understand why their education is important. And a lot of time we hear students say, I don't think I'll ever use this. And that's a detriment, because we want to show them ways they could use that. You know, if you want to go into engineering, this is how you would use this. I used to teach geometry, and so I'd say, hey, if you're going into architecture, I have a friend that designs golf courses around the world, and I'd say, hey, this is a great tool if you want to be an architect. If you like playing golf, consider this field. If you like buildings, if you like traveling overseas, just plant all these seeds. You know, from these seeds, great oaks are going to grow. They will. Transformational learning is just a really interesting theory, because you do have to challenge your students. I had mentioned the desirable difficulty. But remembering that learning isn't necessarily linear. A lot of people get this idea that it has to be linear. And sometimes you're just revisiting things, it spirals. So just think of it as just connections, more like a web perhaps, or a spiral. Okay, now we're to the Kahoot, the fun part. So I just wanted us to play a little game about Oklahoma education to see what we know. I didn't know all this before I started, but I thought this would be useful to know about Oklahoma education, because our program is about building educators to stay in Oklahoma. And I think that's really important, because Oklahoma has great schools and we want to continue that for our students. Let me see if I can jump over to a new screen share with the Kahoot I set up. Hang on just a second.
Are you able to find the buttons?
I'm I'm looking. I think I just shared email. Did I share email accidentally?
Yeah, we're seeing your Outlook right now.
Okay, I can't see it, but let me see if I can pull up this window I have because it's open.
Yeah, so it looks like what you're sharing is a specific window instead of like the whole desktop.
Is it showing up now?
On my end, I'm still seeing Outlook.
Hopefully not a bunch of unanswered emails, right?
It certainly looks better than my inbox. There's that.
Okay, it says it's right here, so let me try to share it again.
Okay, now it looks like we're getting somewhere.
Is it a white screen?
It is.
Okay.
But I do see the little dots moving in the top corner, so it sure looks like it's trying.
I had it pulled up and ready to go. You know, the old joke about testing someone's patience with slow internet.
Oh.
Okay, let me see if I can just get it back.
Sure.
How are we doing on time?
Let's see, we go till 2:20, so we've got 29 minutes. We're doing pretty good on time. We're not quite halfway through.
Perfect. So I'd like to play this and see how we do with Oklahoma education information.
Yeah, absolutely. And just for my own personal, I threw in the chat that I love seeing Mezirow mentioned. That's a throwback to my grad school days. Spent a whole semester working on transformational learning and Jack Mezirow. And
I put him in because I spent a semester doing that too in grad school.
nice.
I thought I'd do him some honor. He talks a lot about a disorienting dilemma. And that kind of goes along with Piaget, that we have to have appropriate challenges. The tricky part is that a lot of times we're either too under, you know, it's too easy. And we tend to do that because we don't want to get the kids frustrated. But then sometimes when we jump over and it's something they don't know the language, they don't understand, they'll just shut down.
Yes. Yeah, we call it pleasantly frustrating, or yeah.
Pleasantly frustrating. That sounds good because usually I just get frustrated.
All right, we are seeing Kahoot.
Okay, good. Let me log in. I think it just goes straight with my Gmail. So let's see if that happens. Oh, here we are. Good deal. So you'll see Oklahoma education game, and you'll have to keep your screen up so we can look at the questions, but you'll need your phone or a different device to click on the answers.
Yeah, this is certainly plenty of time for participants that are here to navigate to Kahoot through a different browser tab or on your phone.
And I usually play classic Kahoot where it's individual, but I will say I played one time a team Kahoot at a conference and we had a blast. It was people that didn't know each other, but we jumped in teams and we got so competitive and had fun. So do consider the team one in the future.
Good to know. Did you do that virtually or through in person with them?
That one was in person, but I've done it virtually as well, and it's been really fun.
Nice.
And I've taught about 5 years in a virtual room. So it was interesting when all of a sudden we had to go to virtual rooms because I've been using one for a long time. And,
There you go.
you know, it's just a different dynamic when you can't see people and you have to use different tools to get to know people. It might not be as straightforward as an in-person classroom, but you can still build those relationships and have those fun interactive games.
Yeah, absolutely.
Let me give everyone just a minute to sign on a nickname. I'll tell a funny story. One of my grad students, he let his students sign in, and they're middle schoolers. So what do you think happened? So they all signed in using bad language and dirty nicknames. And he came to class next week and he said, I love playing Kahoot and I tried it with my middle schoolers, but you need to set up their names or they will surprise you.
Yeah, that's no question. They're unashamed.
I know, and it's anonymous too, so he couldn't figure out who wrote all the dirty words.
I did see in the chat that Sarah is also trying to get logged on. So I don't know if she's stuck in a loading screen or not.
Okay. Something good about Kahoot too is that it keeps the game pin up so late joiners can jump in. What's interesting though is that the faster you answer the questions, the more points it gives you. So you do want to be prompt. You want to have the right answer, but you want to also be prompt. So let's just go ahead and get that started. Even if you're not able to play with us, this is some interesting information about Oklahoma. So the question says, how many traditional school districts are in Oklahoma? We're known for having a lot of school districts in the United States. How many do you think? Looks like some people knew we had about 500. Very good. I did not know that. I knew we had quite a bit. Let's keep going. Good job. What is the largest school district? And I put a picture if you needed some help. Oklahoma City is the largest. Tulsa is very close, and Epic is actually a strong third. I believe Edmond was fourth when I was looking up our demographics. But that's all interesting to know too, that if these large school districts have a lot of people, remember 60% come back to close to where they grew up and where they went to school. We also need to consider rural schools. You know, how can we also help our rural schools and build those networks? Okay, moving on. See, AJ, you were in first.
I'm shocked. Oh, there we go. Sarah's got points too. Great.
This is important for us. What is the estimated percentage of Oklahoma children with incarcerated or have been incarcerated parents? Now, remember that Oklahoma is #1 in the world for both male and female incarceration, not violent charges, almost 12%. So 1 out of 10 of your students at least has had, a member of their family who's been to jail. Oklahoma has the largest population of people who are this than any other state. Oh, very good. That one surprised me a little bit, but it does make sense that we have the largest population of American Indians. I also want to point out with our program Educator Rising that 51% of our students are students of color. So this is from the United States. So there's a lot of networking and collegiality that happens with our programs. Okay, let's keep going. Sarah's in the lead. It's close. Very good. Okay, last question before the bonus. Who is not famous Oklahoma alumni? Oh, very good. Very good. He went to Texas schools, I believe. Very close. Good job, everyone. Are you ready for the bonus? Which area is the largest growth, 112% in Oklahoma student needs? This one's tricky. Free lunch. I believe this was a stat from our State Department that this has been our largest area of growth. Good job, Brad. Good job, AJ. Good job, Sarah. And we play Kahoot a lot sometimes, and I need to make sure people have read, or I just need to know their background information. So this is a good way to just see what everyone knows. And I'm really impressed everyone knew so much about Oklahoma education. So you might have been working in Oklahoma education for a while now to know so much good information. Okay, I'm going to close this box. You can save Kahoot information for data, but I'm not going to use this right now. So I'm going to close this box for us. And then let me see if I can pull back up my PowerPoint. Let's see, is it showing up?
Yeah, so we see the standard view, and then if you hit play, either in the bottom right or play from current slide, which would be your second button up there. Yep. And then if we're going to want to hit that display settings again, don't you love it when it changes things on you?
Wonderful. There's just a couple slides left. Some things I want us to think about. You can type it in the chat box, or you can save it for later. But what are current and future issues with education the past couple years? For Oklahoma, I shared that slide about 12% of kids having a family member who's been incarcerated or still incarcerated. Right now we're facing the COVID pandemic, which will bring a new future for us. We'll be using virtual tools probably more than ever. And how do we use that to enhance instruction and not as a crutch? So these are all things that we can talk about and discuss. I think I just have maybe 2 slides left. Let me keep us moving. Also, what intrigued you? AJ mentioned he studied some of the transformational theory in grad school. There's so many different theories out there. I always say, you only need one lightsaber. So it's good to know a lot of things, but if you're doing a million things, you'll overwhelm yourself, you'll overwhelm your students. And I've had leadership where we're doing too many things and it's hard to implement them well. I've also had, I guess, my first year teaching where you want to implement things with your students and you're doing so many things at once that you really do want to think about just small incremental changes. And one of the steps, one of the methods to good teaching is called input plus one. And that is about adding sort of one thing at a time. So if you're saying 10 things randomly, it's hard to process that. So the input plus one is really good about acquisition of knowledge, how to just keep building on things. So let's come full circle to this end. We started in the beginning talking about Oklahoma teacher connection and transformational learning. And it is about having this familiarity with your content. You need to know what you're teaching. That's always a strong teacher that knows their content. You also need to know your students so you can connect it to them. It's always evolving. We talked about that engagement piece. There's so many factors to good teaching that you don't want to overwhelm these students who are considering going into education. Just remember where we start out. Our programs are similar to an introduction in education, like sophomore year program of a college. So consider it that way, that these are beginning teachers. We want to just show them how exciting learning with students can be. In education, as in life, the happiest hearts beat for others. I heard that phrase about a week ago and I thought, oh, the happiest hearts beat for others. And really think about that being a teacher is hard work when it's done well, but it is the most rewarding work. I also want to point out from where we began that the teacher connection that we have at the state regions, it is about supporting educators in schools. It's about lifting up our school communities, and that we can build these leadership skills. We can have college success and future teachers right here in Oklahoma. And so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Dr. Bravetti. I don't see any questions in the chat, just a few comments along the way. But yeah, thank you very much for that presentation. And we have still a few minutes if anybody has comments or questions. This sounds like a fabulous resource that I certainly wish I had had whenever I started out teaching. You know, this is great.
I also would have been really excited to have this because the curriculum has a calendar all laid out for you. So if you're new, you don't have to do a lot of deep thinking because you got a million things going on this first year or two teaching. But you also, if you've done a lot of leadership classes, you can say, oh, I want to move this around. So you can tweak it to make it your own. And that's the best part of teaching, that you see the needs of your students, you see what's working. And, you know, I love data, but just look at your students' faces. When you look around the room, you can see who's involved and who's engaged. And then that will lead to the empowering and the excelling of future educators. If we want to, we could share comments and then kind of build off those, because I know it's been a very interesting time in the history of education that everyone had to move to virtual tools or hybrid learning.
Yeah, that was one of the comments, especially about the future of education was I threw in that equitable access to technology is going to be an issue, and Sarah also agreed on that. That's something we've for sure seen across the state, whether you're rural and it is just a dearth of connection points, or whether you're urban and financial resources limited, or you've got several siblings at home that has made it difficult to bandwidth, or just a quiet place. We've had students that are joining classrooms from a bathtub because it's the only quiet place in the house to do their lesson, So yeah, it's brought a whole slew of problems that we never could have anticipated.
And I hope this builds resiliency. And I believe that students and parents and community members are trying their best. So if we can, learn and keep growing through this, you can learn and grow through anything, because it has been a challenge with a lot of tough environments. Any comments about that? I'd love to hear stories. Thanks for sharing, AJ.
Yeah, absolutely. Just my friend Sarah from the Regents is also agreeing, just in terms of what the pandemic revealed for all of us. Yeah.
I think there's a lot of silver linings, because I hear so many parents say, wow, teachers do a lot. And I said, yes, like it is a profession, it's a craft. When you do, the preparation of your lesson plan and your assessments and, providing all that feedback, it takes a very special person to be in education. We know that, but now the world knows it. I didn't get to see the chat box. Was there anything else about the pandemic?
That's it so far, but I did drop a handy fact earlier when you were asking the question about districts in Oklahoma. When I learned, I think it was KOSU or KGOU, one of our NPR stations in the state, did a story early on that we had over 6,000 school districts in the early days of our statehood, because every small community had their own, and we were so disconnected. Yeah, 6,000 school districts in the early days. So 500 doesn't seem all that bad anymore,
Not at all. And there's pros and cons, because if you think about the community, they had their school, and the school was the center of life. They had their sports games and their Girl Scouts, Boy Scouts. That is really fascinating that, I guess, collaborating the schools, how that affected everyone, because we had 6,000 and went down to 500. There's a lot of change, and schools that did have small communities that became bigger communities.
Awesome. Sheila commented she loved your quote about happy hearts beating for others. Yeah, that's been so true. This past year has demonstrated so much the need to care for others, to go that extra mile to change not only our behavior, or not to only care for others, but to change for our behavior in a way that is cognizant and conscientious of others' needs, for sure.
I heard it last week and it just stuck with me that so many good parents and teachers and people in general, they are so giving. And I'm a new mom, so the happy hearts beat for others is very relevant to me because I'm so happy. I'm tired, but I'm very happy just taking care of my babies. I have twins, so I got two.
Oh my goodness. Well, congratulations. How old are they?
They're one. So they came
Wow.
right before the pandemic. And this is a little tidbit. My research colleague in China kept saying, things aren't well over here. And I kept saying, oh no, it's coming here. And I just had babies.
That I can't even imagine. Wow. Congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. And congratulations to everyone to doing such a great job. And I'm so proud of our educators around Oklahoma.
Yeah, absolutely. That seems to be it so far.
Okay. Well, maybe I'll just stay on the line if anyone has any questions or wants my email or anything. And then I guess you're free to go. Class got out early then.
Yeah, we have a final wrap-up session from 2:30 to 3. That's of course optional, but our keynote speaker, Rhett Lubbock, will be coming back to do a final kind of engaging. What are you taking away from this thing? For anybody who went to his breakout session after the keynote, he kind of continued that theme with takeaways and how to build, build your toolkit a little bit for rejuvenation. So I think here in just a few minutes, we're going to start that. If you go to the agenda tab, you'll see where to get into that session. So.
That sounds great. Do you want me to stay on the line for just a little bit longer?
Totally your call. People are still sticking around, but I'm not seeing any interaction in the chat. So I think we're good to go and close it out. Thank you so much, Dr. Bravetti, for joining us. And if they do need to get in touch with you, your information is within Whova, and then I think you've shared it elsewhere as well. So thank you.
Perfect. I'll see everyone at the next session then.
All right. Bye.